Good evening, everyone. My name is Tyson, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the topic of gender normative conditioning, which is something that's really important to me as a coach, as a teacher, as a father, and as a human being. I've spent most of my life in the communities of martial arts and strength and conditioning, which are traditionally male-dominated spaces, although I'm proud and happy to say that I've witnessed a lot of progress in that regard over the years. I also went to college to become a registered massage therapist, which is an industry that to this day employs about 85% women. I've also worked teaching kids martial arts. I've worked as a strength coach specializing in youth athletics. For the last 5 years, I've been running a program where we run free self-defense workshops for women. And my fitness education career has taken me all over the country, doing work for the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as overseas in Singapore and Hong Kong. And during my time spent in all of these different communities, I've always been surprised at how many examples I've seen of the harm that can come from stuffing kids into boxes labeled boys and girls, only to grow up to be stuffed into boxes labeled men and women. And I've also seen the amazing potential that could be unlocked by having those bounds broken. I've always wondered how many of society's greater overreaching problems can stem from something as seemingly simple as clinging to rigid gender normative stereotypes. It's hard to say exactly, but when we look at things like phrases like a girl or boys will be boys, not even talking about overt or malicious forms of sexism, but subtleties, things like saying like a girl that I believe can be just as harmful, if not more so, because of how normalized they become, even among otherwise well-meaning people. Think about the last time that you heard the phrase like a girl. Chances are it was a disparaging comment being made toward a young boy, saying that he played like a girl, or hit like a girl, ran like a girl, screamed like a girl, cried like a girl. People say these things without giving it a second thought, but what are they actually saying? How can we expect to raise men to view women as equals when as children they are constantly hearing and internalizing the idea that the worst thing a boy can be compared to when applying themselves to difficult tasks, communicating their needs, or expressing emotion of any kind is a girl? In 2013, two researchers named Ratliff and Oishi for the American Psychological Association conducted an experiment studying the effects of implicit self-esteem when reacting to a romantic partner's success. Seems like a bit of a mouthful, but very surprising results. Every single couple that participated in this study reported that they were happy and satisfied in their relationships. Yet, consistently, the men reported lower self-esteem when their female romantic partner achieved success of any kind. And what's really interesting about it is that the researchers went well above and beyond to try to correct for factors that might affect this or throw the results one way off or the other. But whether the man and woman were in direct or indirect competition with each other didn't matter. The results were the same. Whether the success was social, academic, or professional, the results were the same. They even conducted the experiments in two different countries, the United States and the Netherlands. And this is the part that was most surprising for me going through this research, because of the 187 countries represented in the United Nations Gender Equality Index, the United States ranks 47th. The Netherlands ranks 2nd. In terms of gender equality, the Netherlands is one of the most egalitarian societies on earth. Yet even in the Netherlands, men's implicit self-esteem was negatively affected simply by their romantic partner having some kind of success. These men were not examining their own failures. They were simply responding to their female romantic partner having some kind of success. This is not something that you tend to see when we consider each other to be equals. Now, lower implicit self-esteem is far from the only issue negatively impacting men's mental health when it comes to the enforcement of rigid gender stereotypes that discourage behavior or characteristics that they might view as feminine. Okay? These rigid gender stereotypes that might cause them not to see women as equals. Study after study after study show that men are less likely than women to view their mental health struggles as normal or socially acceptable. And if they do, they are far less likely than women to have the mental health literacy to be able to articulate and explain their mental health struggles. They are far less likely to seek professional help. They are far more likely to exhibit anxiety or fear that if they express emotion or communicate their mental health concerns, that there will be negative repercussions in their job or in their personal relationships. They are far more likely to turn to substance abuse as a coping mechanism, and they are far more likely to take their own lives. And study after study after study have shown that this is not due to any inherent gendered differences in the way that we process stress. It is simply to do with the social stigma attached to basically perceived activities or behaviors or characteristics that could be seen as feminine or weak. It is the social stigma of being seen as less of a man by your male peers that leads to these issues. And how are young women affected? Well, right from the beginning of their social and academic educations, they're treated differently than boys. Studies have consistently shown that gendered stereotypes around the potential of girls in math and science leads them to be underestimated in their abilities by parents and teachers. They are graded harder for the same quality of work, and they also tend to self-assess lower, even when there's no measurable difference in performance. As they age, they're also much less likely to be encouraged to pursue higher education in math and science, and far less likely to be encouraged to pursue very lucrative careers in math and science-related fields where they are massively underrepresented. Nancy Grace Roman was famously told by a high school counselor, a guidance counselor, what lady would study mathematics instead of Latin? She was told by one of her college professors, you know, I usually try to talk women out of going into physics, but you might actually make it. That passed for encouragement in 1946. Nancy Grace Roman went on to head the Hubble Space Telescope program at NASA. Okay? Even in the realm of physical strength, where most people would assume they would see the greatest inherent difference in the genders. If you compare the overall strength of male and female elite athletes in drug-tested powerlifting federations, it's only about 20%. 20%. And those same elite male powerlifters are 3 to 5 times stronger than the average male beginner just walking into the gym for the first time. So it's absolutely clear that factors like coaching, nutrition, individual genetics, work ethic, encouragement and support, financial support, make far more of a difference in physical strength than sexual dimorphism alone does. So, how do we deal with this? I can't claim to know the answers, but I do have some suggestions. Number one, consider removing gendered qualifiers from praise and criticism. Try to talk less about what makes a good boy or good girl or good man or good woman, and talk more about what makes a good human being. Second, we should diversify the perspectives and role models of our children as much as we possibly can, from all gender expressions. There's nothing wrong with teaching young kids about the heroism of B-26 bomber crews in the Second World War. But we should also teach them about the 486,000 women working in the factories back in the United States that built those bombers. They were called the night witches because they would shut off the engines to avoid radar detection as they approached the target. They would idle to the target with only the haunting sound of a rattling broomstick to warn of their approach. Then they would try to restart the engine after they dropped their bombs and try to escape. That's a real story. We have 10 Spider-Man movies and not one movie about the night witches. Make that make sense. Third, try to provide the safest, most affirming environment that we can in the home. There was a time in my life where if you'd asked me if I would send my son to school in a pink unicorn shirt or a dress, I probably would have said no. And I would have been wrong. I would have meant well. I just would have been trying to protect him from the same vicious bullying that I went through when I was in school. But I think it's a far better lesson for my son to teach him that there is nothing masculine about letting other people dictate to you what masculinity is. And there is no weakness in being in touch with the most basic of human emotions and asking for help when you really need it. Thank you. Thank you.